Test, test. ready? Good evening at 6 o'clock, so let's kick off this study session of Urbana School District 116. Roll call, please.
Member Sherrill?
Here.
Member Hickson?
Here.
Member Marabou?
Here.
Member Jones? Member Langendorf here. Vice President Baxley?
Here.
President Pulowski?
Here. Are there any additions, corrections, or modifications to tonight's agenda? No. Hearing none, it's now time for citizen statements. If anybody here present wishes to make a statement before the board, please fill out a goldenrod sheet located in the back of the room and hand it to Recording Secretary Lori Johnson. Have we received anything to date? Okay. Seeing no citizens coming forward, the chair would entertain a motion to approve tonight's agenda.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? It's now time for a student ambassador's report.
Okay, this is just a little recap of things that were going on at UHS. On the 25th of February, there was the district band festival, wrestling for girls state, our school polar plunge was on the 27th, and UHS talent show audition started the 27th, and UHS movie night was the 27th.
Our high school science Olympiad went to regionals on February 21st, and we got second place overall, which is really exciting. Our JV got fourth overall, and so JV doesn't go to state, but that means varsity will be going on to state. And so we had a lot of notable finishes, but some of them were we got first place in engineering CAD, we got first place in entomology, first place in experimental design, first place in helicopter, and first place in robot tour. And then both of our basketball seasons have ended, both boys and girls. Both teams played really hard at regionals, so now it's on to spring sports. The girls has their basketball banquet tomorrow night, so very excited for that.
And then we had 3 girls qualify for wrestling at state, Tamia Terry, Lillian DeSanto, and Rakasia Ivy. And then they compete on the 27th and 28th, and then Lillian DeSanto placed 5th overall. And then Max Cooper, he's a senior. He placed first at sectionals, and he went to state, and he got 12th overall. And he also set a school record at regionals of 474.15. And then we had our Black History Month assembly on February 20th. So this was an optional assembly at the high school where students could come, and there were performances from the cheerleaders, a cappella, and many dancers. And then on here we have a link to the video that was played at the assembly, just giving like an overview of the history of Black History Month. Thank you.
Thank you. Now time for board reports. Does anybody, any board members wish to give a report this evening? Go ahead, Sherry.
I keep seeing notices for IASB Advocacy Day, which is March 24th, and that's a day that school boards can go to Springfield and speak with legislators and attend some workshops and some meetings to find out what's going on in the state. I think the deadline is tomorrow. On March 24th is a Tuesday. That's usually a busy day, but if anyone's interested in going, I could possibly change my schedule that week. So just let me know tonight if you want to come with me. And also Read Across America is this weekend, Saturday, from 10 to 1 o'clock. There'll be lots of activities for kids that relate to literacy skills that parents can replicate at home. I hope that families come. We usually expect 1,000 children and their families, so several thousand. We are well represented from the Champaign School Board this year. So in the past, we were well represented from Urbana, so it's Champaign's turn this year, but that's it.
Thank you. Anybody else at board reports? Go ahead, Jennifer.
Yes, I attended the study session for dual language put on by the state board yesterday, and it was very interesting. And I think that much of what Urbana is doing is part of the is part of the guidelines, which is good. But of course, I had to make some comments, and I'm hopeful that they really did seem to be listening. And my comments were were basically about the funding issues and the fact that, once you pass the access test, you don't get any money from the state anymore for those English learners. And if they want us to do dual language, they've got to change that, because the extra expense then continues on up the line. So I'm hoping they listen to us.
Anyone else? I'll do a quick one. I just want to send a word of congratulations to Benita Rollins-Gay, the prior vice president, who now has a section of Walnut Street in Champaign named after her, called Benita Rollins-Gay Way, which is appropriate for tonight's study topic.
And it's
so.
by Rosecrans, where she's been
Exactly.
the majority of her career, right?
Yeah. So
That's
yeah,
very
yeah. Really, really happy that she received that honor.
Thank you for saying that. I forgot all about that.
It's now time for administrative report on our architectural professional services agreement with BLDD.
Okay, so you have the agreement in front of you, so I'm just gonna kind of walk through a few little, like, what it all means, and maybe some questions that board members may have. He's already in motion. I'm gonna invite Mark. So this is Mark Ritz from BLDD Architects. He is one of the principal architects. I've worked with BLDD before. I know Marianne had the privilege of working with BLDD in her previous district. So we're going to talk a little bit about the agreement that you have in front of you. So just a little bit of background of how we reconnected with BLDD. As you know, well, Ben knows, and I think I've shared it publicly, that we've been taking some field trips and going to different spaces in our community, and we also went to the LIFT program in Mattoon, as we've been having additional conversations about the needs at the high school. Our student ambassadors have been very vocal about parking and traffic and all that, and so we're going to talk about that a little bit. But I think one of the areas that we've also been talking about is the fact that our current building may not be adequate for the needs of some of our instructional programming spaces. So before we got too far in the weeds, Randy and I, we have a couple of union folks from the trades who work very closely with us. Principals Guzman, a couple of our CTE teachers and educators, department chairs, and because this is part of kind of Ben's wheelhouse, we invited Ben to participate. So BLDD was the principal designer on the program at LIFT, and we were so impressed at how that building, which was basically an old building that was given to the city of Mattoon, which now is a fantastic program. I know I don't work for Mattoon, but I'm giving them a huge shout out because what they're doing for kids is amazing. And it is a great program with multiple floors, and we were very impressed with the design and how they utilized a really, really old building and turned it into something very modern for their students. And so BLDD was one of the, I think you guys were the main architect on that build, right? And so knowing that they have experience already in creating really creative spaces in older buildings, and our high school is, 115 plus years old, we thought getting with some folks who have really done this in the past would be very helpful. And so that is how we kind of ended up having some follow-up conversations with BLDD. Randy and I also, with Principal Guzman and some of our facilities folks, we went and visited our neighbors across the street and looked at the central, some of the central spaces that they, through their capital project funds, have been able to do some really, really exciting things for their high school students. And we want that for Urbana youth. And we want our high schools to be at the same level. And we want our students to get what other students are getting. So also in our community, some of our smaller districts are also doing some very intentional remodels of their high schools to improve and bring more CTE-like programming to their districts. So we intend to go look at a few more spaces I've invited the high school to come. I think they're coming to the May study session on May 5th to talk a little bit more about what we're doing at our high school in regard to career and technical education. We went and visited Parkland. They have a newer facility that was recently, I think you guys were involved in that one as well. Yes, so Parkland has a new, oh, if you want to hit your mic, Mark, if anytime you want to jump in, when it turns green. So
All right.
Nick Elder, who runs the Early College and Career Academy, invited us out to look at a newer space that Parkland opened. Is it 2 years old, Randy? Maybe, yeah, I think about 2 years old. And it is a really beautiful building. And now we are nowhere near going to have anything of that size or magnitude, but definitely it gave us some great ideas. And because BLDD was involved in both of those, we thought, let's, have an initial conversation with them around what they might be able to bring to a feasibility study for us. And our wonderful student ambassadors have brought forward our need for parking, a traffic study, parking spaces, more flow. So we're just going to incorporate that all into one big kind of program needs feasibility study. So I'm going to walk through what this agreement means and really what it doesn't mean. Mark, jump in anytime you would like. Randy, jump in. Marianne has been with me as we've had some of these conversations as well. So what is a program needs study? So basically, what we're going to do is partner with BLDD Architects to conduct something more like a program evaluation or an assessment. It's a planning study, not a construction project, so we're not saying we're going to, be bringing forward a, construction project yet. I mean, that may be something that happens later in the future, but this initial agreement with them is really just to get the conversation started and with multiple stakeholders at our high school. As we've discovered and as we have talked with you a lot, education has changed significantly over the years. I know a couple of you here were part of our programming when we created our Portrait of a Graduate. And one of the things that we found, which was very enlightening to me, when we sat down to look at the skills that we want to prepare our students for in kindergarten through their whole career, we're not just preparing students to go to college. We're not just, helping them be better humans, which is really important. But we're giving them the skills that they need to be successful in college, in careers, but just basically in life. And so we found out through part of that research that we did for our portrait is that we are going to be graduating students in the next few years for jobs that haven't even been created yet. And it's really important for us to think ahead and be ready for that and make sure that we're giving them some of those skills. One of the programs that the state of Illinois is really gotten behind, our governor, our state superintendent at ISB, is really growing the pathways for our students in regard to career and technical education, fine arts. There are a lot of our students who go into the arts, and it's a very specialized area. And those specialized areas require special equipment. We saw a piece of equipment at Lyft. How much did that? Was it like $100,000? It was some ridiculous amount of money for something that cut things or created things. And so, some of the equipment that goes with some of the new coursework is really expensive, but very much needed. If you talk to Mr. Westman, our industrial arts teacher, he can tell you about a piece of equipment that he has that is like $25,000. And so not only do we need updated equipment, we need flexible spaces. We need our learning environments to basically be improved. So what the district would like BLD to help us with is really look at our existing spaces at the high school. They're going to talk to a lot of they're going to talk to our administrators. They're going to talk to the different departments, our department chairs, and really get a sense for them, kind of what Randy's been doing with his initial information gathering for the master facilities plan, is really figuring out where are the spaces not sufficient. Where are the spaces in our high school currently not matching what they need to do for their programming and for their instruction? How can we better support our building with traffic flow, not just outside? I was just there yesterday. Oh my gosh. At dismissal time, I thought I was running out of there in time and I did not make it. But also inside, like we've talked about the Tiny Tigers program, and I hope all the board members know that we have a child development. We have a couple of child development classes that happen through the CTE department, and we are lucky enough in our district to have a program called Tiny Tigers, and our students get to practice a lot of those child development skills. They get to, we have parents and staff members who sign their kiddos up, their 3, 4, and 5-year-olds. And they come into our space and it helps them learn a little bit about what it means to be an early childhood educator or how a child develops. But it's really hard when you're there on Tiny Tiger Day and you see them walking these little 3-year-olds up our stairs with their tiny little legs and their tiny little feet. And a lot of the spaces that we're looking at that have programs like that, that program's on the first floor. So parents come in and out, and the children are not having to walk up and down stairs and things like that. So really looking at student safety, traffic flow, and basically they're the architects, they're the experts. What improvements do we need to do to our spaces to make sure that we're not only meeting current needs of our youth, but the needs of the future? So does this agreement mean that we're moving right into some kind of construction plan? No. But what it will do is it will give the board some options like estimates and timelines. The first conversation I had with Mark and his co-lead was, just tell us, how much would something like this cost? And they're like, well, we of course cannot just give you a number. We need to know what your needs are, and we need to know what kind of project you really need, because we may be limiting in our thinking, and they may have some ideas of things that we've not even thought of. So the agreement is $28,000, which I think is a steal for what we're gonna get over the next 4 months. Not only the meetings with staff, I think they'll develop some basic conceptual options for us, maybe, Mark, that's part of it too.
That's correct.
Bringing us some budget estimates. Paul refers to our 2018-19 campus land use study quite often, which that predates me. However, when we look back at that, I shared some of that information with BLDD. I gave them those plans and some of those maps. That was pre-COVID money.
Yeah.
So a lot of the dollars that were kind of allocated for things like a dedicated door one, like which we desperately need, a dedicated U.S. main entry. A lot of those things were in pre-COVID dollars. And so anytime we're talking about budgeting, we're talking about more money than we maybe would have thought of a few years ago. And then I think what we would ask the architects to do is, after the next 4 months, I know we only have our teachers, which is why we're kind of hitting the ground running here a little bit. We only have staff through March, April, May. We'll probably ask a few of them to come back in June. We meet until June, so that gives them at least through the month of June to hopefully bring us back. They may need a little more time, and we understand that. But between now and when we finish out the board meeting cycles in June, we'd ask them to come back with just some of their preliminary ideas, some of their potential phasing ideas. One of the things that the campus land use project, I think, gave us was that kind of shovel-ready, different phase options. And so when I shared that with BLDD, they said that we 100% can give you some phased options of improvement at the high school. So we know this is like years and years and years of improvements that we're talking about. I think we will have to have conversations about what we want to prioritize first in terms of what is most needed in terms of the courses that our students are signing up for. I met with Mr. Guzman yesterday about all the elective options. So we can see already some patterns in where our students we don't have like automotive class. We have more students who want to take our auto class than we have space for. And so some of those classes are oversold, you know, students want to be there. When we met with the people out at Parkland, when Randy and I met with them with Nick, they're really high end what they have out at Parkland, but what the person, they have a huge automotive area that donated by Ford. And they said they love to get students from Urbana, from our automotive class, because they have had a great foundation. Our seniors that go over there really do well, and that is an area where we are really not meeting the needs of that program. When you go around and look at what some of the other high schools have to offer in just that one particular class. They'll maybe give us some conceptual drawings along with that phasing. Then we'll ask them to come back to the board and basically just tell us what they found in their 4 months of talking to everybody. Now, is this going to be a comprehensive study where we do surveys and we have town hall meetings with parents? And that's not what we're asking them to do right now. That doesn't mean that wouldn't be something we would do in the future based off of the information that they provide to us in a few months. What they're going to bring us back is a very early, here are our thoughts after talking to your teachers. Here are our thoughts after looking at your courses, your different pathways, where your students are taking their classes, and just where the need is. And then I think it'll be up to the board at that point to say, okay, we'd like to prioritize one or two of these things, and then set forth a plan to move forward with those things, or do one thing at a time, or just say, hey, this is wonderful information, thank you for giving it to us, we're going to put it to the side until we think we have money to do some of these things. But at least it gives us some options that we can then decide where we want to go next. And then we'll have a lot of opportunities for parent input, community input, opportunities to engage our community in a different way. But right now, I think we're really just trying to focus on what we need at our high school. One thing I didn't say is it isn't just about future spaces, it's also about renovating and remodeling the spaces that are existing in the building. So, for example, I mentioned Tiny Tigers. If we decided to move our Tiny Tigers program from the second floor to the first floor, what does that mean in terms of who is impacted by that? And, you know, what department would be have to move to another location? And then we would be repurposing spaces inside to come up with a plan of what we could do outside. So one of the things we've been saying to our students when they've been talking about the gravel parking lot is, or the paved parking lot, or whatever we decided to do, is we have very intentionally over the last 20 years acquired all of that space and all those lots so we could do something like this in the future. So the time is now. That's one of our 7 mindsets. The time is now. But the time is now to be able to start talking about, we've got a lot of green space across the street from the high school. What kind of footprint and what might we want to do with that space? And so I think BLDD, because of the work that they've done and other high schools are the folks that we would really like to do this project with. And so we're really eager to get started, and I know some of our high school folks are eager to start talking to you. So I am going to stop talking now. Mark, did anything else you want to say? Is there anything that I didn't cover?
I think you covered it very well.
Okay.
I would just like to say that we are school experts. That's where our passion is. It's about 85% of what we do is K-12, some type of K-12 planning, construction, design, you name it, any service that a school district needs, we provide. And we're happy to be considered.
Thank you.
Glad to answer any questions.
One program that I very intentionally said I was going to mention, and I promised a couple parents that I was going to talk about, is our young adult program. So, you know, I mentioned some of our other instructional needs. I'm not sure if the board is aware, at least our new board members are not aware, but we have a young adult program currently in our high school. Our young adult program services our students with special needs who have passed that 18-year-old mark, but they're able to stay with us until they're 22. Our young adult program years ago was housed in a house that used to be across the street, basically right across the street from door one. When we had some other homes right there, we bought one of those homes, and our young adult program existed there for many, many years. And then the home structurally needed a lot of work. It began to deteriorate, and there were a lot of problems. So we had to tear the home down, and we relocated the program to the Wesley Foundation Church on campus. And, I mean, it existed there for, gosh, I don't know, 5 or 6, 7 years. And was going very well, and the students there were happy, the parents there were happy. Then, unfortunately, the teacher who had been running that program for so many years decided to retire. Like, how dare she? But she was amazing. And right after COVID, maybe 2021, 2022, she retired. And Wesley Foundation basically felt like with her retirement and not having a really experienced teacher there, that it was probably time for us to find another place for the young adult program. There was no other place at that time. And so we invited them back into the high school. Well, that has been received with mixed reviews. I think it's a space for them, but I don't know. I've met with a couple parents about it, and they feel very strongly that as a district we are, just like we're committed to CTE and the arts and all these other things, the young adult program should be one of our priorities, and I completely agree. And so initially I thought having them in our high school was servicing them well, and we maybe could repurpose some space within the high school and make a better program for them. But after talking to the parents, they just had a lot of really good points that I had not thought of, and it was just not, it was just not my area of expertise, so I didn't think of these things. But when you've got a 21-year-old or a 22-year-old, you don't want them going to lunch with a 13, 14-year-old. You want them to feel like they're more of a young adult, which is why it's called the young adult program. They go out and they work in the community. They get life experiences and vocational experiences, and they felt like having their 21, 22-year-olds going in and out of our high school didn't feel any different. It doesn't feel any different for them right now. And we have 1 or 2 families who have chosen not to continue to participate in the program because they feel like it really isn't meeting the needs of their young adult. And so that is a program that we need to give some love to and include them in the scope of what might we be able to do as part of this study to create a better space for the young adult program. In the meantime, though, I mean, as I said, these are things that are not happening next year, probably not even the year after that. We do need to have a plan of what we're going to do differently for them next year. The program is growing. When it was at Wesley, we had 10 to 15 students. Right now we have, I think, 7. Next year we're going to have 10. And the space we have at the high school isn't sufficient for their needs. So Randy and I have been looking at spaces in the community. Beth Ladd is over this program, and so we were hoping we could find a space to lease or do something different, because we need to do something before we have a plan of what we're going to do across the street on Iowa Street. And so we might be coming back to talk to you about that in the next few months. But I promised the parents that I would make sure that the board was aware that the young adult program should be a priority, and I agree it is a priority and something that we need to make sure is discussed when we look at these options in the feasibility study. So,
It makes sense because these are students who have participated in graduation ceremonies.
absolutely.
So they're saying
Sometimes
goodbye
more
but
than
saying
once.
hello again.
Yes, absolutely. What questions do you guys have about the agreement? I think it was pretty straightforward, and I tried to kind of anticipate what you might be thinking in my little summary, but.
I just had a quick question, since we haven't done something like this while I've been on the board. Where does the 28,000 come from? Did we get a grant
Oh.
for it, or does it come out of a different budget?
We've talked about that, but yeah.
Yeah, we talked about it since it's so closely aligned to our strategic planning goals. We're going to fund this project through the strategic plan funds.
So
So it's
you-
already been budgeted
We
for the
currently have a
strategic.
district budget for strategic planning and to move the programs and initiatives associated with the strategic plan in the Portrait of a Graduate, the funding sources that need to be behind those programs. And we have a budget for it. We haven't allocated all those funds this year, and so we have some remaining district
Yeah.
money there, and that's where we're gonna take it from.
Makes sense.
Yep.
Anyone else?
On your website, there is a video that I watched pertaining to Eisenhower School in Decatur, because I
Yeah.
wanted to see where you were located and what other schools you worked for. When was that completed?
Oh, man, I always think things are closer in time than they are. It was
Yeah.
probably about 8 or 10 years ago.
I was
Yeah,
gonna
that's
say
what they
probably
had
about
said, so I was,
2016.
yeah, I
Yeah,
was
Mary
wondering.
Ann came from that.
That's
Yeah.
where I
so
worked.
that's how she-
Yeah, I know. But it looked very modern. It looked
Yeah.
like it wasn't 10 years ago. It looks like it could have been something that's new and refreshed and would be appropriate in 2026 as well.
Yes, that was quite a transformation.
Yeah.
And we're very proud of that. That won the award of distinction
Mhm.
the year it was, or year after it was built, so. yeah.
Thank you for doing your homework, Sherry. Wow,
Anyone else?
okay.
No?
So, I will, we've met with them, and we were kind of just waiting to have this first conversation, and so I'll get back together with Mark and Principal Guzman, and they want to get started right away, meeting with some of the different departments and starting to talk to the teachers, so we will see them back hopefully soon in June at the latest, like,
Oh,
well,
ho-
at the
hopefully-
earliest
Hopefully we'll
June.
give you a report somewhere along
Yes.
the way.
Yeah.
But yeah,
All right.
for sure by June.
All
Okay,
right, thank you.
thanks, Mark.
This is exciting.
All right, thank you.
Our second report tonight is on the universal mental health screening.
Okay, and that is me too. So, again, my goals for today are basically to provide a brief overview for the board. Oops, John. To provide an overview about universal mental health screening. There's some legislation attached to it. And ISB has provided a timeline for implementation. So as you'll hear in a second, this isn't something optional. So it isn't something we get to choose to do or not choose to do. ISB has basically laid out a timeline for when they expect that districts will be doing this. I'll share a little bit about mental health versus behavioral health, a mental health screener versus a mental health assessment. We have already put together a little bit of I have a planning and implementation district team, and then I'll share a little bit about next steps. So you're not going to get all the info tonight. Today is just meant to be a intro and overview so you realize that this is coming. And we are going to be putting together a much more involved plan for how we're going to roll this out, implement it, and all the pieces that go with it. So I have a cool video, and it's embedded in here, but John has it, so he's going to play it for us. It is basically, what is mental health screening?
In Illinois, we know that student success depends on more than academics. Health, safety, and emotional well-being are essential to learning. That's why beginning with the 2027-28 school year, Illinois schools will be required to implement universal mental health screening for students in grades 3 through 12. What is universal mental health screening? Universal mental health screening is a critical first step toward creating an environment where all students can thrive mentally, emotionally, and academically. The free screener is not a test. There are no right or wrong answers. Instead, it's a supportive tool that helps schools identify students who may benefit from additional mental health resources or support. Participation is voluntary, and parents will have the ability to opt their children out of the surveys. Can this screener help all students get the support they need regardless of background? Yes. The Universal Mental Health Screener is a starting point for making sure students receive the support they need, sometimes before challenges become more serious. Based on results, schools can connect students with resources like counseling, mental health services, or additional emotional support. This process ensures that no matter their background or experiences, students have the chance to receive support that fits their individual needs. I have heard of the vision and hearing test that my child takes at school. Is this screener like that? Yes. By mirroring screenings like those for vision and hearing, Illinois intends to prioritize early detection and support for mental health issues that might otherwise hinder academic and social development. The purpose of universal mental health screening is threefold: to support all students, not just those already receiving services, to notice early signs of stress, anxiety, and other challenges before they grow bigger, to connect students and families with resources like school counselors, social workers, and community programs. Universal mental health screening is about creating a safe, supportive learning environment where every child has the chance to thrive. By checking in on mental health, schools can take a proactive step, just like we do with physical health screenings. When we talk openly about mental health, we show students that it's normal to have feelings, normal to ask for help, and normal to support one another. Together, we can create schools and communities where every child feels seen, valued, and ready to grow.
So that video, I think, does a fantastic job at just giving you a very basic overview of what a mental health screener is and a little bit about what it isn't. So as I mentioned, this is the Public Act 104-0032 that was passed last year. And I'm not going to read that to you because I've broken that down for you in a little easier language. So I have had the privilege to attend a couple webinars about this throughout the school year. And ISB has done a great job of getting the word out to districts, superintendents, and just our practitioners about the fact that this is coming. And they're really pushing us, do not wait until the 2027 school year to get ready for this. I'm going to show you a timeline in the very next slide. So I've joined a few webinars from ISB. ISB has been partnering with Chicago Lurie Hospital. So you'll see their logo on a couple of the slides from the Center for Childhood Resilience. So this is actually an ISB slide, and it basically answers some very basic questions. So what is a mental health screener? It's a tool to identify symptoms, mental health conditions early, and then connect those students to the appropriate services and supports. It is mandated for students in grades 3 through 12. And when do we need to start doing this? As the video said, we are needing to have this ready to go, not to start planning for it, but to be ready to implement for the 2027-28 school year. We need to successfully offer at least one universal screening option that year in order to be in compliance with the school code language, the public law, and just the expectations from ISB. Do SEL screeners meet the requirements of a mental health screener? As you know, those of you who are parents at least, you hear about our SEL screener through things like Panorama, and unfortunately and fortunately for our youth, an SEL screener is not enough. It needs to be a little bit more involved than that. So what is the timeline that we're talking about here? So that green area at the top is the end of the 25-26 school year, which I can't believe how fast this year has gone, but we are almost at the end of the 25-26 school year. Amazingly, we are almost at the fourth quarter. So our goal for this year was to form an implementation team, and I've done that. I have a core group of folks who have volunteered to be part of the process. I am going to be going out here soon and asking for more participation for that. They want us to start having conversations and engagements. One of the webinars that I sat in with the Chicago Lori folks said, any opportunity that I have or our board members have or any of our practitioners to talk about mental health just grows the mental health literacy of our whole community. So we will be bringing forward to you more of our conversations once we get the plan, the team meeting. We've only met once, and we are going to be meeting monthly between now and the end of the school year, and hopefully we'll be able to talk about some of these different decisions that we need to make. I'll talk about those further along. So phase 2 is really getting together and having those conversations around what screener are we going to use, how are we going to implement that screener, how are we going to get parent permission, what kind of guidance are we giving our staff. One wonderful thing about the public law is that it is very clear in the language that the State Board of Education is required to provide a screener for us as an option. Which means a lot for our district. That means we don't have to go out and look at all of the different possible mental health screeners that are out there, because there are several. ISBE's doing that right now. So their folks are, they have a task force that is charged with looking at those different options. Just like we do our curriculum adoptions, and we look at different math things, we look at different EL options before we adopt something. ISBE is currently doing that, and so they are exploring different universal screening options, and then they are going to make a recommendation, and then they're going to put that for districts free for us to access and utilize if we like it. Hopefully it'll meet the needs of what we want to do, but this is Urbana, so sometimes we like to do things our own way. So if we see that screener or what ISBE provides, it doesn't mean that we don't have the option then to say, hey, we really want a screener that does this, this, and this. But I am very hopeful that whatever we get from ISBE is going to meet all of our needs, and that we don't have to go out and try to find financial resources to purchase a screener, that we can do, we can just use what ISBE gives us. Because part of what they're going to give us is also some training. They'll give us some of those free resources that our teachers can utilize and our specialists. So we're looking forward to that. I have been told, and they've said this openly in some of our webinars, that they plan to have that screener available to us this July, which is fantastic, because then that gives us all of next year to really get in there. We hope we could put together something like a train the trainer model, where we get trained and then we train our staff members who are going to be implementing the screener in the schools on the training. But all of those things are things to yet to be decided, hopefully very soon this summer, and with the extra work being put in by our planning team. And then phase 3 is really implementing that screener and being ready for the 27-28 school year, when we put it in place and provide it for our families and our students. And I didn't say this, but of course you guys know you can stop me as we go through. So what is mental health? Mental health relates to thoughts and feelings and how those may impact our lives. Mental health includes wellness, social emotional wellness, behavioral health, and the ability to cope with life's challenges. What is behavioral health? Behavioral health and our older young people, and you'd be surprised, we're hearing about some of these things at a much younger age than we did before. Things like substance abuse and eating disorders, and also conduct problems are sometimes grounded in some kind of behavioral health need. Behavioral health problems are often a reflection of an underlying mental health issue. So addressing those behavioral health issues can also help us address some of our students' mental health needs. This is a great slide from this is their logo in the top corner there, if you wanted to look them up. So the Center for Childhood Resilience, they're located at the Chicago Lurie Hospital in Chicago. So this is, they provide the slides, you know, when you go to a webinar, they kind of give you the slides afterwards, because what they want us to do is basically what I'm doing tonight is to bring this information to our parents, our school board members, our administrators, just to start talking about this now, so we're making people aware of what some of what the underlying issues really are. So this slide is basically just telling us about the differences between mental health and mental illness. So our emotional, psychological, and social well-being as a child, that is some of those developmental and emotional benchmarks. So what we're talking about is mental health. What we're not talking about is mental illness. Mental illness is something very different. Those are the conditions that affect a person's thinking, feeling, mood, and behavior. We're wanting to focus on how we can help our students develop stronger mental health skills to help them navigate the world, help them better develop their social skills, just in coping and resilience. And I'm just going to say this openly, because in the last 5-6 years since the end of the pandemic, this is one of the areas that I have seen impacting our youth more than anything, is their ability to cope and their resiliency skills. And that is something that that's one of the reasons why I think we're seeing more mental health issues in young people much younger than we have before. So this slide does a great job of talking about that. One of the things that the way we might see this play out in our schools is children who are irritable, who are moody, not able to express their feelings, often sad. We talk at our schools, and we've talked about this in some of our spaces around safety, is the suicide rate. Suicide is the third leading cause of youth in Illinois, that's a frightening statistic, which is why we've had some press policies that have come across. You know, first we put the suicide hotline information on our student badges, John, about 2 years ago? And then this year, you guys just approved Press 120, which had language in there about not only do our students need to know that suicide hotline information, the adults working with our students need that information. So now we're required to put that on our staff members' ID badges. Because in 2022, I pulled this statistic from Chicago Lurie, 83 children ages 10 to 19 committed suicide just in the state of Illinois. That's an average of one child every 4 days, which that's just frightening. So I'll go on here. So mental health screening versus a mental health assessment. So what we are wanting to do is really focus on that left side, the preliminary evaluation to identify red flags, areas of risk. We are not doing a detailed examination. This isn't going to be a lengthy pulling students out and spending an hour with them one-on-one. This is meant to be a very short screener, which a screener is typically 5 to 10 minutes. The outcome is that we are not giving a diagnosis. We're not asking our folks that are going to be doing this to call themselves clinicians in any way. We're just, the screener will provide the information that we need that will kind of flag a student, so to speak, to let us know that they may need further evaluation or support. Who would be administering this? Well, it's going to be administered to all of our students, and in grades 3 through 12, not our K-1-2 folks, but our 3 through 12 students would get the screener, and we would hope to train a wide variety of our school staff so we can do this quickly and not interrupt too much learning. And anytime that you're pulling students out to do anything like this, sometimes there are students who have had previous trauma or have had things that have happened to them, and we're not trying to trigger or bring memories or anything back to a student. We want it to just be very quickly done, and we just have those predetermined cutoffs where we identify those students that we would be needing to work with more. So universal mental health screening works best when processes are developed in collaboration with the community and integrated in a comprehensive system of school mental health supports. So what does that mean? That means when we have a student who is flagged, then now what? What does that mean? Well, what do we do? So part of what we're going to have to talk about as part of this planning and with the planning and implementation team is what are the policies, what are the protocols, what are the supports and interventions that we need to put in place. We often see that triangle. You know, we often talk about our triangle, and we know the bottom of the triangle is kind of that tier 1 level of what everyone gets, and then that middle part of the triangle that gets a little smaller is the tier 2 or the secondary level of support, and then we have those kids at the tip top who need even more. They need the core, they need the tier 2, and then they also need the tier 3. So what we need as a district is we need to have what's that tier 1 or that tier 2. The tier 1 is a universal screener that everyone gets. The tier 2 is now what do we do? And those are the things that right now we also don't have in place. So with this group of amazing educators here on the right side in the orange, on our planning team, we have a general education teacher, we have a special educator, we have a couple of social workers, we have an educational diagnostician, which they are working with our school psychologists. We have a couple building administrators, and then myself, Beth Ladd, and members of the student support teams are the central office administrators. So what we will do as a team, I do hope to invite a couple more teachers. We need a few more teachers to be in this space. Right now I'm starting with a group of volunteers, but hopefully after I do this presentation, I'm going to share this presentation with the principals, and hopefully we have more volunteers who want to be part of this. I would love to have a parent, someone who might be watching this tonight who is really passionate about this topic, who would also like to be on our planning team. I really welcome that. So some of the decisions that we need to make are who's going to administer the screeners. We know that ISB is providing one for us. Hopefully that'll be one that'll meet our needs. We'll have to talk about consent. Right now, ISB is recommending informed consent, which means every single kid in 3 through 12 would have to send back a permission slip. And that we know will be a really, really hard process, but we'll have to talk about what are some ways that we can do that. In our very first meeting that we had with the team, they suggested, could that be part of centralized registration? Can we put the form in there and give parents a little bit of information, and they can sign it right then, so we don't have to track them down later and ask them about, do they agree with this or not? We'll have to talk about confidentiality. Because holding confidentiality when these kinds of things are flagged is really important. So, you know, we'll have to talk about teachers not talking about this in the teacher's lounge and with their, you know, in grade level teams. And it'll have to be a little more confidential because we'll be bringing parents in to say, hey, your child participated in this screener and they were flagged for more intervention and support. And that's not always going to be easy for a parent to hear. And so making sure that we're being confidential around those conversations, sharing that data, interpreting the results, and then making sure that we're sharing that information with our staff in an intentional way. So one of the things that we've talked about doing is establishing some behavioral health teams to really, I mentioned earlier, kind of a train the trainer model. Right now we already have threat assessment teams in our schools that comprise our administrators. The SROs are on the threat assessment teams at the middle school and high school level. Social workers are part of the behavioral health teams. But this team would be a team that would really help us put those extra level supports in place at each school and make sure that they're being followed. I think at the district level, we can outline, you know, here's the policy, here's the practice, this is what ISB is saying we have to do, here's some money in order to, you know, have the resources you need to do that. But at the school level, we really need those folks who are doing the work every day to make sure that those procedures and whatever we come up with, the protocols are being carried out with fidelity. That is our administrators. That's going to be our practitioners to make sure that the policies and practices are being followed, and that we're making really data-informed decisions. We definitely are going to have to work with our community partners. The Chicago Lurie folks have shared some states that have been doing this and doing it very well. Like they shared a model from Boston Public Schools, the Denver Public Schools, and there's another big district from a really large city. I can't remember the other one, but they've shared several examples of things for us to look at. We are nowhere near where, the Denver Public Schools and Boston Public Schools are, but they have created these fantastic partnerships with the community to be able to provide some of those tier 3 and tier 2 supports in the schools. And right now we have our school-based health center. They're our biggest partner because we can have students go to the school-based health center, but we're going to need to have more than that once we start doing this mental health screening, because once we identify the students and we screen them, then we have to have a plan of what we do next. And we're going to need our community partners to really help us navigate that process. So next steps, like I said, today was very much a information session, just giving you that general overview. So when you hear us talk about universal mental health screening, when you hear those words put together, knowing it is coming, and I wanted our listeners to know that. I want our families and our parents who are engaged in this process to know that mental health is not a dirty word, and we want to kind of reduce that stigma. Some of the ways that we're going to be able to reduce that stigma is to start talking about it. Having engagement opportunities, sharing communication. I'm hoping that we can start getting out some messaging about this, whether it's through the registration process, whether it's through just putting out some of those parent square blasts so people can come in and learn a little bit more. So we can really increase mental health literacy around as a school district, what we're going to be doing. We need to involve more people in the process. So as I said a few minutes ago, I would love to have some parents or even some community partners who this is something you do every day at work. Bring your knowledge to our planning team. I would love to have you. Leveraging the resources provided by ISB, exploring those interventions and supports that we can utilize once we have more information from our screener. And then we are going to have to identify some financial resources, and we can do some of this through our grants. I'm hoping Title I money will be able to pay for some of the training. We have Title II funds, which is our professional development grant, because we are going to have to spend some professional development time training our practitioners on whatever the screener is, and then making sure that we're getting some training in those tier 2, tier 3 interventions to provide the supports that our students need as a next step. So that's all I have, just to kind of give you a brief overview. What questions do you have? Is there anything that I didn't share that you're wondering about?
Are we going to have enough resources to support the students that are flagged? And then
So let me give you, good question, Lindsay. Let me give you an example of what a tier 2 intervention might be. So it might be something like there's some small groups where we can pull a student in a social skills group. We have groups around feelings, emotions. We're doing some of that as a kind of lower level through PBIS. We do something called social academic instructional groups, where we help replace social skills. Like some of our students are coming to school with not the same level of social skills as they had maybe a few years ago, and those are things that need to be intentionally taught. So we're doing some of that in more of a PBIS world. But this would be way more intentional around some of the mental health needs that students might have around depression or being sad and what that means. And so there are some very specific programs. I know I can think of one. One that and I'm not going to remember the acronym. I should have written it down. We used to run some groups called Sparks groups for our middle schoolers, and it was basically our social workers or some of the trained providers would pull out a group of 3 or 4 students, and they would come and talk about their feelings, their emotions, why I'm sad, when I'm sad, what are the things that I'm thinking about? And they have research-based, evidence-based curriculum with lessons that we would pull the students out, and they would go through kind of these lessons with a trained provider. Those would be some of the things we'd have to spend money on. You know, ISBE's going to give us the screener, and then we're going to have to figure out what do we do next. Are we going to use Sparks? Are we going to use, there are several out there that we now pull together a bunch of our staff members and train them, and then they would then be running the groups kind of in the buildings. So.
Any other board members or ambassadors wish to make questions?
Yeah, I have a question. I know it's only required one time a year, but during the year is a long time when things happen with students developmentally. There are lots of changes
Sure.
at home, changes with, what if it can be given more than once if the
That's a really
educators
good
feel
question.
as though they see a change in a
I
student?
don't know protocol-wise if it's breaking fidelity to give a screener more than once. Like, once you've asked those questions one time, I don't know that you can go back and ask them again. However, I think what we can do is we do have threat assessment teams that they're trained to look for those kinds of, concerns. Our social workers are trained, like when we have students who experience grief or experience divorce. We see sometimes those behaviors play out in school. You know, when you have a relative or an immediate family member pass away, or unfortunately, we've had some of our young people, we were just talking about this yesterday, Angie and I, who a student, his older brother was murdered, and we are seeing behaviors now from that. And so I think that as a school community, it's important for our teachers to pay attention, and for all of our folks working with those youth when we see, wow, that they're acting out in school, they're withdrawing from school, they're sad, or, sometimes those things kind of rise to the top, and then hopefully we can an adult sees that and says, well, I really think we need to call the parent. Is something going on at home? So I think those are ways we can address that already, and we already do that. But that's a really good question. I think that's one of those things that when they give us a screener, I'm sure it'll be very clear about whether or not we can leverage that test more than once. But there are also a lot of free tools out there that, like you said, if maybe we give the screener once, but then maybe we have another tool that we can pull that student in and kind of use with them, so we're not violating the integrity of the screener in any way. But that's a good question. Yep.
Anyone else?
Anything else? Okay, so hopefully I will be coming back to you by the end of the year with a little more information. Because ISBE's not going to provide us with the actual screener until July. It might not be until August that I'm able to come back and give you a really real update of what our true plan is going to be. But just know that the conversations are happening behind the scenes, and we know this is coming, and we as a district want to be very much aware and ready to, not just because we have to. You know, sometimes there's things that ISBE gives us that are just check boxes, like check, and we have to do things because of sometimes our legislators pass new laws and there are things that we have to do. But this is a really good thing, and I think ISBE has given us a few kind of pre-surveys. I'm going to be doing a survey with all of our principals at our next principals meeting. They have a survey that they want to see where we all are as districts. Some districts are going to have more in place already than others. We're one of those districts where we have some lower level things in place, but we don't have as much in place at the tier 2, tier 3 level as some bigger districts may already have. So ISB's asking us to give them kind of a pre-assessment. Where are you now? What resources do you have? What don't you have? Do you have money already allocated in your budgets for things like this? I think they're just trying to determine across the state, you know, through almost 900 different school districts, where are most people landing, so then they have a better idea of what they need to provide to make sure they're giving everybody what we need and leveling the playing field for the whole state, basically. So we're having some things that we need to do between now and throughout the year, and yeah, and so I'm looking for, this is a good thing, and I think this is going to help a lot of youth. Our, you know, as our job is not just to care for our students' academics and, you know, some of their social things and enrichment and sports, but we also need, like I said earlier, we need to be helping them be better humans, and one way we do that is to make sure that all of their needs are being met, and we're kind of looking at the whole child, and this is a big part of what a lot of our young people are struggling with right now, so. Okay.
There is no call for future special executive meetings, although for those of you on the facilities committee, including me, there's a doodle poll that we need to fill out to schedule that meeting. I will do it, promise. Superintendent's report.
Okay, so last week, unfortunately, I was at Luda on Friday, and I missed this, and I'm really sad that I missed Dr. Logan, but students at Leo Elementary had a powerful visit from author Dr. Gilo Logan, who spoke with the students about accountability. So these are some pictures that Catherine took over at the visit. His book, Protecting a Dream, shares the life and legacy of his father, Chief Bill Logan, and his historic moments alongside Dr. King. I think Chief Logan was one of the first African-American police chiefs in the Chicago area, from what I remember hearing about his story. And so Tracy Parsons from the Champaign Community Coalition, I don't know if you noticed that Tracy was nominated in the paper as a local hero through the CU Schools Foundation. He's an Urbana alum. He was really instrumental. I think these are Rachel Spencer's students over at Leo, some of the fifth graders, and they kind of combined the fifth grade students together. And Dr. Logan shared copies of the book, and from what I was told, it was a great visit, and they had a lot of really hearty conversation about Chief Logan and his experiences alongside Reverend Martin Luther King Jr. Teacher of the Week. So I don't know if you saw last week that Denise Weirdelak, fourth grade teacher at King, was nominated as a Teacher of the Week. So this is a small little picture of Denise, but you can see the bigger picture through the link in the article. She's been at King now, I think this is her third year, and but she's been in the district for 8 years and taught in Chicago Public Schools, I think, before that. So congratulations to Denise, and we're always so happy when our educators and our staff members are recognized. We know how wonderful they are, but it's nice when other people see how wonderful they are too. Leo and UHS collab, so Urbana High School students in the FACTS program. Well, actually, this is the club, the Family, Career, and Community Leaders of America Club took a field trip to Leo last week to teach the kindergartners how to make bread. And so for those who don't know, Leo is very close to the high school. So it's really easy for them to walk over and do little activities there after school. So the kindergartners were able to, in their unit on colonial times, and connect their learning to real life experiences. And they were able to, they made some bread with the FCCLA club. So really cool. Look at his little face in the corner. He's like, oh my gosh. And so the UHS Polar Plunge was also last week. And so this is some of our students and our staff members plunging. The high school raised almost $5,000 for the Special Olympics Cool Schools Polar Plunge. they just missed meeting their goal. I know the Principal Guzman said if they met their goal, he was going to allow himself to be dunked and he was going to plunge in the water, but he was able to get out of it. But so next year, hopefully they'll get that goal, because I was really looking forward to seeing that. But the students and staff did brave the cold weather, and they were out there plunging it up on behalf of the Special Olympics of Illinois. Melissa McMahon at our high school, who is a special education teacher, is really passionate about this, and she takes the lead on it at our high school to raise all the money. So shout out to UHS. Conferences are next week. If you can believe it, is already spring break time, and so conferences are right before spring break, and so students, make sure you get your parents in for those conferences. Each school will send families information about how to schedule a conference. I've already seen some of those emails going out. We hope you take the opportunity to join in on those conversations about your students' academic progress this year and how you can help support them to finish the year strong. Family feedback. Our district values your feedback. We are asking everyone to take a brief survey to tell us about your experience. This is I think this is the 5 Essentials survey, which is required. Each year, the Illinois State Board requires us to survey our students and staff to gather their feedback. It is part of the school report card, so our participation from teachers, parents, and students have to meet a certain threshold, and that information is included as part of our school report card information that we get every year in October. Please complete the survey by March 13th. Your answers are anonymous, we promise. We don't know who you are, and no one knows who said what. And the survey is available in multiple languages. That's it.
All right, thank you. There are a pair of FOIA requests that were processed and as they were published in the agenda. One thing I neglected to say during my board report was a shout out and congratulations to UHS alum Jackson Gilbert, who finished 3rd place in the Big Ten Indoor Track Championships with the 2nd fastest time ever run in that event by an Illini.
I did not know that.
Yeah.
Yay, Jackson.
Yep, 45.7 seconds in
wonderful.
400 meters.
Nice.
Crazy. With that said, the chair will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
We will see you all in 1 week.